In the age of information, Black mental enslavement is now a choice. Your choice is now to either go from your cradles to your graves, having lived your entire lives being mentally enslaved. Therefore, you've lived your entire lives being the white oppressor's fools. Or you can elevate your thinking in order to learn the truth that emancipates your mind from white mental slavery. I'd rather lose my Black friends for telling the Black liberating truth than to endorse false beliefs in order to hold on to mentally enslaved Black friends. Our plight has nothing to do with a Bible written by our most ungodliest enemies and that was brutally beaten into the blood-soaked minds of our ancestors. That is an asinine belief system. It's ridiculous. And our collective condition has nothing to do with a silly slave syndrome myth, which presents what would in fact be the least effective method used for controlling generations of people. When we assign our plight onto a Bible written by our most ungodliest enemies and connect our collective condition onto an urban myth, we are in fact making damn fools of ourselves. The truth is the truth regardless of who it offends. I will not be silenced to appease Black ignorance when it's in fact Black ignorance that keeps millions of us mentally enslaved. We must function based upon what is actually true in regards to our plight and condition in order to liberate ourselves. Because if our understandings are flawed, all of our liberating remedies and strategies that stem from those misunderstandings will also be flawed. This is why those of us who know the truth must teach African proverb. Here is the absolute truth of our plight and condition. Although the government portrays itself publicly as being a democracy, wherein which all citizens are equal, in reality, it has always been unrelentingly committed to the preservation of its nation's white dominance over its Black population. This unrelenting commitment is the reason why after the abolishment of slavery, they then implemented black codes and Jim Crow segregation laws that allowed the white establishment to continue their subjugation of Black people. When those blatant subjugation tactics deployed in the past against Black people during the 1960s had ran its course, thus became no longer socially acceptable with the changing times, and had resulted in unprecedented Black protests, the white oppressors did not abandon their subjugation practices against Black people. They instead merely developed more covert ways to continue their subjugation of Black people. It's the truth of our plight and condition. The details. In 1968, white social scientists that were hired by the Kerner Commission determined that an aggravating core factor for that decade's unprecedented unified Black protest was caused by an elevated and unifying Black collective self-esteem brought on by the emergence of the Black Pride movement. They also learned then that while oppressors, through their weaponry advantages of guns, rifles, and cannons, can brutally invade and enslave a people, they, however, cannot win those people's loyalty or sustain peace with those people indefinitely unless their minds have been manipulated to think in ways that prevent them from unifying and seeking retribution against their oppressors. Because whenever people are oppressed for long durations, their collective aggressions against their oppressors will continue to grow until it reaches a boiling point, resulting in massive acts of rebellion against their oppressors. The oppressed always eventually rebels against their oppressors. This is an inherent response within the collective human psyche whenever people are held under long-term oppression. This is what was actually happening among the African American population during the 1960s. White racism had reached a boiling point within the collective psyches of African Americans, which resulted in that decade's unprecedented unified Black protests. Those white social scientists logically determined that they could subdue unified Black protests by keeping the Black population divided, keeping our collective self-esteem very low, and by shifting our black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirecting it towards ourselves. They achieve all of these objectives by deploying psychological warfare propaganda campaigns against the black population. The white media's unrelenting negative depiction of black people that amplifies the negative to the point that it distorts our reality is so much more than just biased media reporting. It is actually an insidious, black racially demoralizing divide and rule psychological warfare campaign. Demoralized divide and rule is the method of maintaining control over a targeted population through constant and unrelenting demoralization in order to create self-hate and division between them. It's a well-documented and well-proven social science tactic for controlling large targeted populations. That same tactic is what's now presently being deployed against the black population. And it's so obvious that it's only by not critically thinking that it cannot be seen. For when critically thinking, it becomes obvious to see just how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is that virtually all narratives that black people receive about ourselves from the white society are consistently negative and black racially demoralizing. It is actually a black racially demoralizing divide and rule psychological warfare campaign. This is not some silly conspiracy theory. It's the truth that they hide from us. Throughout world history, oppressors have often deployed demoralized divide and rule psychological warfare tactics against the oppressed population. Because when the oppressed are divided and made self-loathing, they are much more easy to control. This nefarious practice was never abandoned. It's the warfare tactic that white oppressive forces presently deploys against the black population. The white society writes all black narratives and controls all black mainstream media images. The white society therefore literally owns black people's interpretation of our collective state. This unfair scenario allows white oppressive forces to easily negatively shape how black people perceive ourselves collectively. They've transformed this scenario into their greatest weapon used for controlling and subjugating black people. This psychological warfare system is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects the black population to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. Within this system, fraudulent, black, racially demoralizing, and divisive propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the black population, without being challenged or counterbalanced by an equal amount of black positive, racially affirming information. It conveys a subliminal message that black people are now our own worst enemies and therefore need whites to govern over our lives. Moreover, that black people should admire, respect, and trust only whites. This system is extremely effective because when black people are repetitively presented those noted narratives from trusted white media sources, it can be very difficult to resist its implied propaganda programming, especially when the propaganda is being told daily and so unrelentingly. The basis of this concept of warfare works by affecting the subconscious minds of the black population through constant and unrelenting demoralization. It works by tapping into the immense power that shame has upon the human mind. Its weapon is the demoralizing message that it carries and the way that it adversely affects the black population in terms of our behaviors. With time, being unable to refute the constant negative information being told about us, many black people eventually comes to accept them. The constant taunting of negative propaganda unconsciously influences how many black people in our communities perceive ourselves, thus creating division and self-hatred among us. It also shifts black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirects it towards ourselves. As long as we're kept within this collective condition, we can then be ruled over forever. Through the skillful, sustained use of repetitive media subliminal programming propaganda campaigns, white oppressive forces have created a prison for the minds of millions of black people. And those black people who do not critically think never notices their mental change. This is all possible because people are like computers. All you have to do is keep giving them certain information every so often, and you can persuade an entire generation towards an applied objective. It doesn't matter if the information presented is untrue. Most black people will act according to the information because they've all received the same misinformation and disinformation about ourselves. This psychological warfare system provides the white oppressors with a more proficient method used for controlling and subjugating the black population. For unlike the past blatant racist systems that black people were easily able to identify and therefore develop counter strategies against, this system is not easily recognized, nor is it easily comprehended by most of its black victims. This psychological warfare programs work so well, in fact, that it not only makes black people more compliant with white dominance over our lives, it in fact makes many black people even prefer it. It is at the root of the profound division and self-hatred now afflicting so many black people. And it is at the heart of the internalized feelings of false superiority that many whites possess. This is the truth of our plighted condition. We must elevate our minds from idiotic beliefs and start learning that there are social sciences that a white society is being deployed against us. It's time to wake up to our reality. You can learn more by ordering my book at www.theblackpeoplesmatrix.com. One love and peace.